We're back on the podium, we're second in the World Championship, but no, it's not enough. McLaren is soaring, Red Bull relying on a single car, and Ferrari remains adrift. This video provides an in-depth look at the SF-25. The real problems of Barcelona, tire management, strategic mistakes, under-the-radar technical signals, and the real moves. Because behind the silence on updates and Vasseur's apparent calm, something is being prepared. But is it enough to really win? Stay until the end, because this time just reading the results is not enough. You have to read between the lines. If you like the videos, hit like to support me. And now let's get started right away. Ferrari finishes second in the Constructors' Championship at Barcelona, but it's not a cause for celebration. It's better than Imola, but a small step. Vasseur agrees, the goal isn't second place. He's correct. The data indicates growth, but in reality, McLaren has found a niche. Red Bull endures with a single car, Mercedes is declining, and Ferrari is barely staying afloat, neither sinking nor soaring. The race pace of the SF-25 was insufficient to worry McLaren. The strategy only half worked. Leclerc sacrificed qualifying to keep two mediums in the race. Hamilton followed a more conservative soft, medium-soft strategy. But the real problem was a double balance failure that affected both drivers, which Vasseur confirmed without going into details. Leclerc discussed it directly with Piastri in the paddock. Leclerc was a sensation. It was a real problem. Hamilton had an unbalanced car in the last stint. Something broke or changed on the SF-25 and we still don't know what. And if we want to talk about mistakes, the swap between the drivers at the start of the race came late. Vasseur downplays it, but some seconds were lost. When battling McLaren for 10th, every detail matters, and the tires were a puzzling factor. The soft worked better than the medium despite the heat. This surprised everyone. Ferrari had bet everything on the long run, bringing 3 new sets to the race. It helped, but not enough to keep up with McLaren. In qualifying, however, it cost dearly. The strategic choice cost 2 to 3 positions, just a 10th more would have kept them in the top 4. Vasseur admitted that the gamble did not pay off, but that it was necessary. Despite the issues, we remain on the podium and have reclaimed our position ahead of Mercedes in the Constructors' Championship after the disastrous race in China. It's already something. But it's not enough, Vasseur stresses. Winning is necessary. And on the issue of updates, lips are sealed. There are updates that are seen and declared, others that are not seen and should not be declared. Something is brewing, but they're not saying. We know that among these there is revised rear suspension coming in the next races. It's as necessary as bread. Vasseur stated that the technical directive on the front wings did not affect the team. McLaren is still ahead by 2-3 tenths, yet in such a compact grid, even just losing a tenth makes you slip 3 positions. Details that decide everything. Ferrari already had a new wing planned, so the cost to adapt was not a problem. But looking at the race after 14 laps, the Leclerc was just 5 seconds behind and not far off at the finish. The SF-25 has improved since Miami, though it's not perfect. Now the focus has shifted to the steel skate. But even there, Vasseur downplays it. It won't affect us, we just need to test it well. The truth is that more than the driver technique in Barcelona, it was the tires that made the difference. Once again, the real limit of the SF-25 remains the inability to exploit the soft in qualifying and the difficulty in managing the compounds in the race. This forces you to start from behind, to fight in traffic, to chase. The recent races have been promising, but Vasseur advises restraint. Tires demand a humble approach. Every weekend, everything changes. Temperature, asphalt, compounds, nothing can be taken for granted. And this is where Ferrari needs to grow in management, in consistency. Because today, more than with visible updates, you win by reading the conditions well and adapting better than others. Currently, this remains the specialty of others. There are issues with the power units this season. The regulations are locked, no developments are allowed. Mercedes continues to face retirements while Ferrari appears to be underperforming. Hand pulled. The feeling is that someone is doing tests in advance for 2026, and if so, there would be a valid reason for all these problems. Here are the key facts. Mercedes has had 3 withdrawals in the last 3 races. Antonelli out at Imola due to an electrical failure, then again in Barcelona due to an oil leak. Alonso even lost a cylinder in Monaco, something that hasn't been seen in Formula 1 for years. And no, it's not normal. The most recent similar incident was likely Ricciardo with Red Bull in 2018. This type of failure never happens by chance, especially at a time when the power units should be reliable and tested. Meanwhile, Ferrari has changed its approach after the technical problems of the Haas, Berman and Sauber engines. Bortoleto. In Miami, the team decided to run with a less aggressive mapping. They don't say it, but it shows. The SF-25 has lost some of its shine on the straights, but at least it has gained in reliability. The real question is, are they already testing something for 2026? Is it plausible? From next year, fuels, internal combustion, and everything else will change. If you can experiment now with hybrid mappings or subtle software modifications, do it extensively. The World Championship, if you don't win it, you better use it to prepare yourself. And Mercedes seems now totally projected towards the future. McLaren in all this remains immune. It's the only Mercedes customer that hasn't had problems, but it's also the only one fighting to win. The suspicion is that it specifically asked for stable supplies without experimental changes. It's no coincidence that they are light years ahead in the constructors and can really only compete with Verstappen. The suspicion is there and it's not unfounded. The tests may have already started. No one will admit it, but if you see so many failures on theoretically frozen engines, there's a reason. And those like Ferrari, who want to return to winning, must take risks now. But data is needed, kilometers are needed, and it needs to be done without compromising the reliability of the two SF-25 SES. Because getting to the end remains the only certainty to stay in the group. The truth? No one speaks clearly, but when the PUs start to lose pieces and the teams start to manage, it means that something is moving. And those who stand still waiting risk arriving late. Hamilton came out of Barcelona destroyed. Not so much for the result, which was not brilliant, but for the clear feeling of no longer having control of the car. And we're not talking about a bad day. He himself said it was the worst race of his career. As for the balance, we're discussing a driver who competed with difficult-to-handle cars in the early 2000s, even before the Mercedes dominance. So if Lewis says it, it's serious. In qualifying, he managed to limit the damage, 5th, then 6th in the race, only thanks to Verstappen's penalty. But there wasn't a single moment throughout the weekend where Hamilton found confidence in the SF-25. On the radio, he was very harsh. It's the worst car he's ever driven. Because if even someone like him starts to lose his bearings, the problem is no longer just technical, it's mental. The post-race interview with Sky United Kingdom was eloquent. Everything was terrible, there's nothing to explain. I don't even know if there are answers, maybe it's my fault. A 7-time world champion doesn't say something like that unless he's really lost. And if he starts to doubt himself, then the Ferrari situation is much more serious than what they want us to believe. This is where Vasseur comes in, attempting to extinguish the fire. He says that Lewis was ahead of Russell for 70% of the race and that George did not call his race a disaster. But it's a weak comparison. The point is that Hamilton was expecting a quality leap, a change of pace. He finds himself in a maze without references, and to make matters worse, there's the technical issue. In the last stint, Vasseur confirms it. Something broke or changed on the SF-25 before the safety car, but now it's the rule, not the exception. Since he's been at Ferrari, Hamilton has never had 2 consecutive weekends where the car worked the same way. When forced to start from scratch, the feeling doesn't come. Even a champion can't perform miracles without feeling. The truth is that both Ferrari and Hamilton are in a transition phase. Only that time is running out. McLaren continues to surprise, and not just on the track. In Barcelona, with 50 degrees on the asphalt, they brought a solution that made everyone talk. A front tank filled with 6 pounds of dry ice to cool the cockpit of the MCL-39. And no, it's not science fiction, it's Formula 1 and it's perfectly legal. The Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile has approved this system located in the front area, outside the center of gravity, precisely because it cannot in any way come into contact with the gasoline channels. The reason is simple. Cooling the fuel is strictly forbidden. It would mean getting more power for the same consumption. That's why McLaren had to mount everything overhanging at the front, even knowing that 6 pounds there are certainly not optimal for the dynamics of the car. But there's much more behind this choice. The cooling on the MCL-39 is one of the secrets of its reliability. While Mercedes breaks engines and we're talking about the same power unit, McLaren has never had problems. The reason? Each team independently develops the cooling system, bellies, radiant masses, hot air vents. Woking has built a closed, compact machine that manages thermal flows with surgical precision. It's not just about the power unit, the tire behavior, especially the rear ones, is optimized by the braking system. In the carbon baskets, a gap of fresh air is created that prevents the tires from overheating. This means longer stints, less degradation, more performance. This is where you win today in Formula 1. In the management of detail, in thermal control, in the ability to maximize the performance of each component. Red Bull has asked the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile for a formal clarification on this issue, which is no coincidence. They want to know exactly what is allowed and what is not. Despite the new directive in Imola, McLaren hasn't lost a tenth and is actually getting stronger. The dry ice is real and it's working not only for the comfort of the driver but to maintain the efficiency of the package constant. Yes, it's true that 3 extra kilos weigh, but if the gain in thermal management is greater, it's worth it. Also because when others stop due to breakdown, you're still running, McLaren doesn't. F1 is not merely staging the World Championship, but laying the foundation for long-term dominance, with every detail being crucial. Tsunoda has officially entered the vicious circle where all of Verstappen's teammates end up. First Lawson, then Perez, now him. In Barcelona, he finished last in qualifying, sinking to the bottom of the grid while Max was trying to keep up with the McLarens. The rumors started again immediately. Is Isaac Hadjar ready to step in once more? But this time Helmut Marko surprises everyone. He doesn't tear him down as he has done in the past with others. Instead, he defends him. He says that Tsunoda had a less updated car, that it lacked a new bottom, and that in some free sessions he was even a tenth from Max. But then, when it comes to qualifying, Verstappen makes the difference. The problem is systemic. The RB21 is a difficult car with a narrow operating window. If you don't fine-tune it perfectly, you're not competitive. Verstappen manages to adapt on the fly to every change, but if you arrive in Q1 still figuring out where to put your hands, the weekend is already compromised. And that's exactly the point. We need a driver who can handle it psychologically, not one who tries to stick with Max, because everyone fails there. When they try to beat him, they collapse. We need someone stable, consistent, who scores points. Since then, Tsunoda's performance has declined. This is his final opportunity to regain trust and earn points. The credit he has is not infinite, and if Hadjar continues to do well, the change becomes a matter of time. Yuki is aware and must act swiftly. Tire work has officially started in Barcelona. In 2026, Mercedes and Racing Bulls put 2 mule cars on the track to test the new Pirelli slicks with a precise focus. Mixtures, hard, different constructions, high temperatures, the Catalan circuit is perfect for stressing the tires. And it is here that it was decided to collect the key data for the next regulation. George Russell and Isaac Hadjar were the protagonists of the first day. Both have turned a lot. 136 laps for Russell, 146 for Hadjar. More than 4 GPs completed in a day. But the time matters little this time. The goal is different this time, to evaluate how the new carcasses behave over distances with different pressures, loads, and asphalt conditions. The real news is that tomorrow we're back on track and there will be 2 special observers, Andrea Antonelli with Mercedes and Yuki Tsunoda with Red Bull. Both are called not only to turn, but to give crucial feedback on tires that will change the face of Formula 1 in a few months. Tsunoda driving the official Red Bull for a Pirelli test speaks volumes. It's a way to evaluate him outside of the chaos of qualifying and pressure-filled weekends. And it could count a lot in his race to keep his place on the team. For Antonelli, on the other hand, it's an opportunity even more important than the race results. Overall, Pirelli and Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile want answers quickly. The 2026 technical regulation is now defined in the guidelines, and the tires will have to be up to the new power units and new aerodynamics. Grip, durability, and consistency are needed. And it's clear that Barcelona is just the beginning of a long series of tests that will accompany the paddock for the rest of the season. The 2026 Formula 1 calendar is taking shape and the upcoming changes are significant. The goal is clear: to reduce intercontinental travel and streamline the race sequences. Less ping-pong between Europe and America, more geographical logic. It will still start from Melbourne. Albert Park will be the venue for the debut of the new single-seaters with chassis and power unit 2026. And for the second time, it will use one of the 5 opening tokens provided for in the contract with Liberty Media until 2037. Saudi Arabia and Bahrain will only return to the lead in 2027, also to avoid overlaps with Ramadan. But the real news concerns Italy. Imola is off the calendar. Despite the fans' petition, the Sant'Antonio is not included in the plan. Could it return in rotation with Spa or Barcelona? But in the meantime, it is sacrificed to streamline the middle part of the season. Montreal is expected in May, likely after Miami, in an American doubleheader before returning to Europe. This also moves Monaco to the first weekend in June, breaking the historic overlap with the Indy 500. But the problem is right there. Montreal and Indy risk running at the same time, forcing fans to choose. Madrid is preparing for its debut, pending the circuit's timely completion. The Spanish capital will take the place of Barcelona in September, closing the European tour. After Zandvoort, Formula One says goodbye to Monza. Barcelona should remain, but return in the spring, probably paired with Monte Carlo, like this year. The final part of the Asia, America, Middle East calendar should remain unchanged, with the only doubt about Las Vegas. The contract ends in late 2025, but renewal appears certain. Liberty Media is promoting the event themselves. In short, 2020 brings with it a more orderly calendar, but also some excellent farewells. And between Imola exiting, Madrid entering, and the date war with the Indy 500, there will be a lot to talk about in the coming months. If you like the video, hit like, subscribe, and activate the bell so you don't miss the next ones. Write what you think in the comments, and see you next time.